Now, conscious capitalism is an international movement that was started by Whole Foods owner John Mackey with the basis and the premise that business can solve all the world's problems. Now, as we approach that, this is where the genius, I should say, or the origin of the roundtable was created under when I was in DC, and I realized that we're going to talk about solving problems. There's problems 45 miles up the road. I'll divert for a second and say 15 years ago, when I would come up to Baltimore City from DC, I'm originally from St. Louis, and I moved to DC in '88, and I would always come to the harbor in Baltimore. And I was always told by my DC friends that when you go to Baltimore, just go to the harbor and then come back home. Don't ever go north. Well, one day I ignored their warning and I went north, and I got a chance to start to see some of the blighted properties, and I saw the different neighborhoods. Now, from my perspective, because I am an optimistic, and I'm an engineer, so I'm always thinking with a problem solver hat on, I saw opportunities. And I went home and I began to work on a document. And I said, if I was actually had the capability to purchase all the blighted properties of Baltimore City, how much would it cost? What would it take? And what can I do with that? Who can I align myself and partner with in order to make that happen?
So when we talk about how do we get here with a 30% gap in home ownership and what do we need to fix it, access to capital becomes important. We have to always advocate at the local, state, and federal level, the public sector and the private sector at each level of government.
I'm just thinking, as we talk about Prince George's County, how much the predatory lending and foreclosures may have to do with that percentage going down.
What was that?
I was saying, as it relates to Prince George's County statistics, just wondering how much of the predatory lending and foreclosures brought that number down.
I think it probably has.
Rhetorical question.
Yeah. But just one thing I'll say, just across the country, there is a national movement afoot to create more what we call single-family rentals. Okay? The last 5 to 6 years, it was big on terms of multifamily rental, but across the country right now, there are well over 3 million, I was told, I believe, in single-family rentals and growing. So even during the more, if we look at a lot of the places where the foreclosures took place, many of those African Americans are now renting houses that they used to own. So, so one of our issues in this report, we talk about non-performing loans, and so the mom and pop investors, which many of you would be considered regardless of your color, you're going to find over the next 2 to 4 years that institutional investors will become your greatest threat.
PNC Bank, the African American Minority Developers Collaborative, Baltimore Community Lending, to create, as an engineer, I'm always looking for what's the pathway, what's the process to get to the goal. And we want to create a pathway so folks don't try to just start off at the Wall Street Journal and get turned off. Because I tell folks that's like starting at the PhD level and trying to read it, and then getting frustrated because you don't understand the symbols and how that's working. But what's the pathway to get there? Now, there is a similar, or I should say, a simpler path to becoming financially literate, particularly as it relates to real estate investing and development and business development. Now, how many people here are interested in raising capital, or understanding how to go about raising capital? Or I believe that's a process you can raise capital, right? And so today we want to talk about that. We brought an expert that's very knowledgeable in the area of raising capital. She brings I don't want to say how many years of experience, but she brings a lot of experience as it relates to understanding working on Wall Street, helping fund managers raise over billions of dollars. She's passionate about real estate and, more importantly, crowdfunding, and helping folks understand how that is an actual vehicle that can be used to begin to use and build wealth. See, as an engineer, you always understand that as long as someone else has done it, then there's a way of figuring out how to get it and duplicate it yourself. So the question became, for me, how do we go about creating a $50 million fund? That's what we want to do. So if we can begin to purchase properties in Baltimore City, we're not sitting around trying to buy 3 or 4 on a block. As Bill said, no one wants to land if you buy 3 houses on the block that has 16 blighted properties. Now, not only do not someone want to live there, no one wants to live there. So we want you to understand that the purpose of tonight, or today, is to get you centered that we have a solution for every challenge that comes up. That's a pathway, that's a process. And so now we're gonna talk about the pathway, the process for actually creating a $50 million fund. Now, how many people here would be interested in actually having access to their own fund for real estate investing? That you can just go out here, find a deal on the street, and pull the trigger. Not only on the acquisition, but on the renovation. And not have to worry about running out of financial capital. But in order to create your own fund, there's a process, there's a pathway to get that done. Our next presenter is an expert doing that, so without any further ado, Wet Ferris.
Real estate, and again, I'll use the term crowdfunding, but just for you guys to understand, that's the process, not the product. The process is to go to the crowd to raise capital. Real estate crowdfunding is significantly successful in today's market. Reports are showing that in real estate development, folks are raising almost equal the amount of private capital for real estate projects as they are in debt. Now, what's happening is those are a lot of your smaller, younger developers that's actually raising that capital because this avenue is now available for them. So, if you're looking to do a project and you have site control, you have the asset, and a lot of times people go the equity route because they can't do any more debt for whatever reason. So if you have asset control, you have the building, you've raised, in your example, 50% of the full capital you need, I can't imagine there's not a bank that won't be able to work with you because you got the asset, you're coming in with capital, and you're just asking them to match or whatever portion some part of that. Bill, would that be correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many conscious developers are there in the room right now? All right, we're going to talk about what that means. And we're going to talk about, knowledge. And we're going to talk about the power of knowledge. And we talk about the solutions that we need in our communities, right? In order to revitalize Baltimore. The gentleman earlier talked about Prince George's County being the most affluent Black neighborhood in the nation. Do you guys remember the number that he gave when he said how many of those families are in home ownership? Does anyone remember? Was less than 65, was it?
It was less than 60.
Okay.
And we're gonna throw some numbers in, all right? I wish you weren't sitting so far away. We're gonna get a clue, we're gonna get a plan, we're gonna get money, right? We're gonna get in, and then we're gonna get out, all right? And that's how I want you to think about this, right? The finance is not about spreadsheets, right? That's just a tool, it's one of many tools, right? But all of this is about the money, right? It's never what people think it is, right? It's never what people think it is, which is what makes it so fun. So I'm gonna play a video. If I can get this video to play, you'll see what I'm actually trying to talk about here.
Such a nice spreadsheet.
So you think I'm nuts now, right? All right, playing show tunes in a finance presentation, right? All right. People who need people are the luckiest people. Everything you've heard all morning and now afternoon long has been about what?
Needing
People, right? People who need people, yes. But if you don't like people, don't do this work, okay? If you just want to crunch numbers or think that you're going to go off and do something in the corner, don't do this work, right? Most of the day I'm doing accounting, and what am I accounting for? People, and what people do, what they don't do, what they say, what they don't say, talk to them, the impact of what people do. It's all about people and where they live, what they want, what they don't want, how they got it, what they did with it, what they didn't do with it. You know, that you're a good architect or that you know anything about capital raising, right? So you got to know your lane and play to it as your strength. And then fill in your team. And oh, by the way, this is about people who need people. You can smile now, guys. This is not that serious. Come on, all right? Because your team is what's going to make you successful. You don't do development by yourself. It's a team at the core, and then another team outside of that, and then a construction team after that, and then you've got people in politics, you've got people in the neighborhood. It's all concentric circles of people, right? And if you don't get that, you will lose your money and your shirt and everything else. After that, you need to get a plan. Right? A plan has several key parts. You need to understand all the parts of getting the plan together. Bam, bam, it's this big, it costs this much, I'm projecting it's going to generate $800 a month, I'm going to make $67,000 a year, when I'm done with paying my expenses, I'm going to be basically at the cap rate for the market, I'm good, let's roll, right? Bullets, right? But then you can take those bullets and go a step further, right? And that's what we would start a deal with, which is a sources and uses statement, right? And the sources and uses statement would kind of look like this. Number one, on the left side, the sources of the capital for the deal, right? So we already talked about Joe and his dad and the construction loan for $300, right? So we've got the total financing of $400,000, right? See, simple, right? It's clean. That's where the money came from, right? And then it's going to go out, right? And that's the uses of the capital, right? And the uses of the capital get broken down into different flavors. I call them soft costs and hard costs and acquisition costs, right? So they bought the lot, they bought the building for 50 grand, right? They spent some time doing design work, right? Which was in the pre-development phase and the construction management as the construction went ahead, and they paid some interest along the way. We'll call those soft costs for now, because they're people and their brain work, right? And then there's hard stuff. They had to buy, you know, sheetrock and wood and whatnot. We'll call those hard costs, right? Add the whole thing, and the two should be the same, right? So I've gone from a whole bunch of words to some bullets, right, to a static document, right, that shows me what I need and what I'm going to do with it, right? Now, a trained eye would hear all that talk in that one statement, right, sources and uses. But then, what I do is I take these very same numbers, sources and uses, I need to show a lender or a banker what that looks like over time. Show me that I can get in and that I can get out, right? And over time, it looks like that. Which we're not going to talk through today, but it gives you all the different ones. It's the same numbers, right, with one exception. It's the same number. And what I've done is I've gone from no money in the deal, all right? I've tracked my cash along the top. I end up paying out everything that I raised and the things built, okay? That's a simple cash flow form, right? It gets more complicated, but you can see I've got my soft costs and my hard costs and the owner's investment coming in. Everything that's positive is without the brackets. With the brackets, it's negative. That's the money going out. And I can see month by month by month how much money I need to draw down, what source I draw it down from, and where I'm going to spend it, and how it all ends up. All right. So I went from a whole lot of words to some bullets to a simple sources and uses, and I like dipping my knife in the butter, spread it out over time, came up with the same amount. All right. And that's what I need to present. That with the team and what I'm asking for makes a strong case to get funded, right? Which is when you talk about getting the money, right? This is simple, all right? You're either going to get and use your own money, or you're going to use some of your money and some of somebody else's money, or you're going to get as much of somebody else's money as you possibly can. That's the financial strategy. Have a nice day with them, okay? But it's going to depend on your deal, okay? is gonna depend on your deal. Sometimes you're gonna do really complicated stuff, like get tax credit financing and flip something in an IRS deal to avoid the capital gains and blah, 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 blah. Other times you're gonna say, I want it, let's do it, we're done, all right? It just depends on the deal, all right? It depends on the timing, right? It depends on a lot of things, and it depends on your view of how to get in and how to get out. So here's some just quick points on things that I've seen affect money on deals when people try to get in, all right? The weather. You want to see a finance guy on a real estate deal lose his mind, all right? Don't pay attention to the weather, right? This is a seasonal business, all right? There's some stuff you cannot do in winter or in a rainstorm or in 100-degree heat, okay? So you will spend money differently depending on the weather, right? Neighborhood issues. I already talked about homelessness, all right? You don't think about it when you're sitting in a Saturday morning seminar about financing, but it's a serious issue, right? People stealing stuff from your job site is a serious issue, all right? The cost of the security dogs to keep them from stealing your stuff, all right? Sealing your unit, sealing your space as you do the work, right? The availability of materials and supplies. You'd be surprised. On one job, I'm in negotiations now with vendors, right? For stuff like air conditioning units, or an ejector pit for sewers and stuff. These things have to be built, they can't just be ordered, right? If you haven't figured out on your critical path mapping how you're actually gonna get that stuff in at the right time, you will spend money while dudes stand around doing nothing, right? And you wait for a piece of equipment to be delivered. Structural issues, remember we were talking about bricks and sticks? Well, maybe you couldn't put the roof deck on the 4th floor because you'll knock the whole damn building down, or maybe something has to be buttressed between 2 buildings in a row house, or all these kinds of things you might not find out till you're in the structure. So you gotta work your contingencies and plan for it financially, all right? Water. You're laughing because you've done construction. Water. Oh my God, water. Water on roofs, water in basements, water between buildings. There's a building I know in Charles Village. I sit there and you just constantly hear water running and no one knows why, and everyone's got a huge bill. I'm like, yeah, okay. Unforeseen rock, native burial ground, slave quarters, dinosaur bones, all come up on projects, in cities. It's amazing, right? And it will stop your project, and then what do you do, right? Native flora, rats, and bugs, all right? We all know Baltimore's got a rat problem. That costs money, all right? Native flora, like there's a whole environmental thing about native plantings. And don't cut down that tree. It's too, all that will cost you money in the deal. And it will stop you from getting in, right? You think you can just knock the thing out, oh, this is 3 months, 4 months, we're in, Nope, that happened, right? So you got a budget for it. And lastly, getting out, right? Not always so easy to get out of a deal, all right? Specifically, these things. Again, I can talk forever about all of them. I won't do that. But it's weather again, right? Weather can keep you from getting out of a deal. Concrete, we were laughing about something happened on a deal that we both had touched years ago where, there's days to pour concrete and there's days you really should not, right? Because it's like a chemical baking process or something. And if it doesn't set right, you will be coring it back out to put more back in, and that costs money, all right? Liens and waivers. Well, you didn't pay that contractor, you got some dispute, and now they won't give you a release, so that you can't move on, bonds and inspections. Yep, well, the county didn't like the way you graded that backyard, and you better do it again, or the inspector didn't like the way those 2 pipes joined up, where there was never a box that was connected underground the right way, so the water supply, blah, 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 blah. All right, all that keep you from getting out of a project, costs you money. The Americans with Disabilities Act will cost you money, all right? Insurance, I won't say anymore. Warranties, endless punch lists, market conditions, the broader economy. Oh my God, you might have done everything perfectly, right? And then Wall Street decides it's gonna crash. And then everyone's preoccupied and your beautiful, well-priced units just sit. And then, really? Really? All right. And of course, the certificate of occupancy, what everybody wants. You're out when you're really done, right? You've got the thing and it's over, right? So again, you get the clue, you get the plan, you get the money, you get in, you get out with the margin. That's the whole thing. If you keep those things in mind, you'll make money in real estate, right? If you can kind of get that extra reflex for when one of those is going to become an issue, you're going to be perfectly fine. Should I play you the last video?
Yes.
Absolutely.
You want the last video?
Yes.
The last video. It's all about the people, all right? It's gotta be, all right? Because